Hello everyone, so my name is Cathy Macharis. I think I already got a very good introduction to what I wanted to say, because what I think what we miss in transport appraisal is really looking at who is involved. What are those different stakeholders thinking about those concepts? And so that's the multi-actor, multi-criteria analysis methodology that we developed that tries to fill that gap. Now, I'm coordinating the research group MOBI. We're working on sustainable logistics, electric and hybrid vehicles, urban mobility. And what we do is try to build instruments, decision support systems to help in this field. And so the MAMCA, multi-actor, multi-criteria analysis method, is something we are using quite a lot in the group. This is a group we are at the moment with 70 people. And if we talk about sustainability, indeed we look at the three pillars, so economic, social, and environmental. And we look at how can we make our transport system more sustainable. And we think and that's my story about the 4 A's, we think we have to go towards more awareness, and with the tools and evaluation methods we can create more awareness, so that's important. And then we can try to avoid things, so telework, teleconferencing. We can, if it's not we cannot avoid it, well, let's try to make it more sustainable transport mode, so act and shift. And then if it's a car, well, try to anticipate new technologies and use electric and hybrid vehicles. But working in this field, what we saw is, well, there are indeed very nice new concepts. Also in city distribution, you see quite a lot of interesting things going on, but often those things are failing in practice because what is missing is the 5th A, and that's actor involvement. We have, for example, one of the projects that is completely not advancing is the ring road around Antwerp. And sorry, this is in Dutch, but I know Danish is very similar to Dutch, I already noticed. But on the one hand, there are people saying, well, we need a tunnel, no, we need a bridge. There are other ways to avoid and to have better traffic management. And so there is a whole discussion already going on for years. And the main issue was there that the citizens of the city of Antwerp were not taking into account, and that led to referenda. And in the end, it really stopped the whole project. And so this type of issues is, well, if you are not indeed involving those stakeholders, you will not be able to implement new types of concepts and ideas. So what I want to show for including stakeholders in the decision making, I want to show why you have to do that, how you can do that, and then what are our new advances in the methodology that we are working on at the moment. Now, we already saw in the presentation of Otto, well, what are the usual methods that we use for transport appraisal is the cost-benefit analysis, and then and usually it's the more extended one, the social cost-benefit analysis, so where you look at for a society as a whole, what is, in the end, the profit you will have in the sense of, are there more benefits for society than it will cost us? So that's the one that is mostly used, but also very criticized, and you also heard the limitations. Sometimes cost effectiveness is being used. For example, for road safety measures, you might think, well, okay, it will come at a cost, but how effective it is to reduce traffic accidents. And then business modeling. In a lot of European projects, that's something they really are keen on knowing, okay, what's in for a private sector, will this type of concept or way of working will also be interesting for that private sector that you can do with business modeling. And then multi-criteria analysis, again, very much used in transport appraisal, but also there are some critics. Certainly because you need to give weights to those different criteria, and there you get a whole discussion on how to do that. Now, we went a little bit a step further than multi-criteria analysis in the sense that we are not using a whole bunch of criteria. No, we are using for each stakeholder group his own set of criteria. And that's what MAMCA differentiates from other methods, because with multi-criteria analysis, at a certain moment, those methods were being enlarged for group decision-making. And so in those group decision-making methods, you're able to work with a whole group and ask, okay, to come to a common consensus. But as most of the multi-criteria analysis methods were used for business type of problems, and you might even have in a marketing department different criteria than in the operations department, in the end, you all have to work to the same goals of the whole company. So there, most applications are there, and they are using one set of criteria. You also got then the more, because of sustainable development, you got the whole approach of social multi-criteria analysis. Professor Munda worked a lot on that, where you indeed include the social aspects, and social, I mean social, economic, and environmental aspects, but still it's in one set of criteria. And so with MAMCA, we are not working anymore with just looking at the problem as, okay, we have only one goal. No, people have different opinions, and it as a stakeholder, they will have different criteria that count for them. And that's what we are looking at those criteria, and we are using their criteria to evaluate the project. So let's have a look at how we do that. And I have a little movie. It's made by a European project we worked in, Straitsol, and it shows a little bit the idea of MAMCA. So here we go. And we don't have sound anymore. It worked before.
Oh, there should be sound on it?
Yeah, there is sound. I can try to repeat it, but it's better if it comes with a sound. Okay. Oh, we don't have a view anymore. Okay.
Used multi-factor, multi-criteria analysis, or MAMCA, as a tool for objectively assessing stakeholder views. The first step is to consider the freight options that are available. In many cases, the options will include combinations or packages of complementary measures. Secondly, we identify the groups of people who are likely to be most affected and ask representatives from each group what is important for them. What are their objectives and how important are they? For instance, a shipper of goods will likely be focused on timely deliveries and meeting customer requirements, whereas public authorities may be more interested in reducing accidents and congestion. With the MAMCA methodology, we evaluate the options according to the objectives of the different stakeholders. The output is a clear overview of the advantages and disadvantages of the different solutions for the actors that are involved. We take all their objectives into account and search for win-win solutions. As everyone has been involved in the decision process, the support for the chosen option will be much higher.
So that's a bit the idea of the MAMCA. So what we do in the beginning is really looking at, okay, we have a certain problem, for example, congestion in Copenhagen. What are the different alternatives? And then the second step is to look at who is involved. who has a stake on it, who will be influenced by it, and who can also influence that solution. So we are really looking at who are those different stakeholder groups, what are their criteria, how important it is for them. And then, of course, if you have criteria, you have to be able to measure it. Sometimes it can be qualitatively, but anyway, you need indicators to know, okay, how will we be measuring it, and how will we do that? And then you have, like in a normal multi-criteria analysis, the different alternatives that you evaluate on those different criteria. You see that I call it here scenarios, because often if you have to evaluate something, you really have to look at it, in which circumstances it will be used. For example, if you are evaluating advanced driver assistance systems like intelligent speed adaptation, advanced cruise control, well, it depends. Will it be used on a highway, in a city center? So this type of context variables, you have to also see that it's clear what you are evaluating. So that's why we call it here scenarios. And so what you will have as a result is really the positive and negative aspects, but that for each stakeholder. So you really have, who will be in support of it, who will have some disadvantages, and if they have disadvantages, what can we do with it? Can we compensate it in some way? Can we change the alternatives? Or will we have to deal with it, and how can we go with it? So that's really very important information on the further implementation path. So just to give you an example, and it's not in our sector, not in the mobility sector, but it's a real example from life. So if you would be willing to go skiing this winter, today with the sun, you're not thinking about it, of course, skiing in holiday, and you want to do that with friends. You can have a look at, what are different alternatives. You look in a booklet, you see a lot of nice examples in France here. And these are the options. These are the different stakeholders. These were the friends, families that I went skiing with. And they are quite different. And so the famille Corinne, well, they like good food. So for them, the kitchen in that chalet is really very important. And conviviality of the chalet. And then Famille de Meester, they're really sportive people. They want to be in a large ski resort, very near the pistes, don't waste time with buses, etc. And then Famille Macharis, we just don't want to be in a chalet where all the kids are around. We find it important to have a good room setting. So you see that they have different criteria, so that's perfectly possible in the MAMCA. They might have similar criteria. A problem you might have noticed with multi-criteria analysis, that you may not have the same, or you might have a correlation with criteria. Here it's not a problem. If that stakeholder find that criteria important, that's okay. If another family also find that criteria important, it's also okay, because you really want to know who is in favor of this option, yes or no. And so they give different weights to it. And then you get for each family, and of course you need then, in the different steps, you have to look at, okay, for how large is a ski resort? Well, you get information about that, how many kilometers of ski pistes there are. So for each criterion, you will find your indicators. You will be evaluating it, and so you get for each stakeholder group a good idea on what is their preference. And for the whole group, the multi-actor view, and so that's completely different than the normal multi-criteria analysis, you will have for each stakeholder group their preferences. So here you see directly, well, these two chalets, nobody is interested in those. Here, you see there are still two that are interesting in Châtel and Saint-Martin, and you also see that there is not really a consensus. But then you can have a look, why is that not so good for the Famille Coréenne? What were their criteria? And you can go deeper into the problem, discuss why would that be, and come to a consensus. So, of course, we are not using it for going on holidays, but we are using it in the mobility sector. We've had quite a lot of applications so far. For example, the one with the MOBI, it was to look at different city distribution concepts and compare them, and also see what's in for the different stakeholder groups. Of course, and that's my favorite citation, if the only tool that you have is a hammer, you tend to treat everything as if it were a nail. I'm not saying that MAMCA is the methodology. What I think is it's filling a gap, because there was not a good method to really look at the different stakeholder groups. But if you want to know, okay, what will it mean for society as a whole? Will there be more costs or benefits? Then you still can use it in combination with the social cost-benefit analysis. Or in Straightsol, we use it next to the social cost-benefit analysis. We also did business modeling for the private sector. So then you really get a good view, and with the MAMCA, you directly see, okay, will there be support, or will there be very negative points for those different stakeholders. So thanks to those applications, we also learn more on how do we have to develop it further. One of the things is, we developed the software for the methodology, because before we used the expert choice from AHP for that. But the problem was that you always get, for the group, the multi-actor view, you got an overall solution. But of course, that's not the aim of the method. It's not like, oh, we have directly a consensus because there are two stakeholder groups that are in favor for that alternative and only one for that. No, the aim is really to look at, okay, are there disadvantages for a certain group? How can we compensate it? To really get insight into the problem and the support for solutions. So that software is available, and we are using it quite a lot. And if you're interested in to use it, it's still in prototype, so I can just give it to you for use, and the only thing we ask back is feedback. So to further improve it. Secondly, it's not because there is a lot of support for a certain action that it's more sustainable. We notice, of course, that if you have different stakeholder groups, that sustainability criteria are just inside of the whole evaluation. But just to compare it with a normal multi-criteria analysis, where you would really focus also on the 3 P's of sustainability, we use it in combination, because a lot of the indicators you can reuse in the 2 methods, within MAMCA and then in a multi-criteria analysis focused on the 3 P's. And so that's what we did within a European project, NISTO, where we then combined the 3 pillars together with that stakeholder analysis. Also, that one you can find on this website and try it out. It's fixed in terms of the criteria that can be used, but it's a good way to learn from the 2 methods. Third, what we see is the stakeholder group of citizens. It's very important stakeholder group, but also a difficult one to know what is for the citizen important. So we are really working towards a more participatory way of working. And this is the ladder of participation. And so there is, you can have nothing, but it's really, you can go very, very far in towards sorry, this is the ladder of participation, where you would have, in the end, like citizen control, and they could decide on everything. Within our methodology, what we, in the beginning, focused a lot on is to know, okay, from those different stakeholder groups, what do they find important? And they were giving them the weights. So often we found in the literature and by talking to people already a preliminary list of criteria. We went to them and then we got a validation and then the weights could be given. So this is already quite common, but we want to, for example, if we would have a stakeholder group citizens, we really want to go for mass participation and adapt the tool so that it's really something that, yeah, you would like to use like Pokemon Go and directly, oh, I can give weights. Okay, something like that. It's maybe too ambitious, but that's a bit the idea that we want to strive for better participation of that citizen group. Also for the alternatives, often it's already, if you come in a project, it's already quite clear, and also Otto was saying that, like, that there is often already a selection of alternatives that is being done, and that's set. But if you are working in like projects really in neighborhoods, people living there often have the best ideas on what are the best options to do there. So we also want to have here more participation and really have co-creation with those people and get the alternatives from them. So also make this more participatory. And then here, when you have the evaluation, often, yeah, we do this type of evaluation from studies that already have been done, or we do our own studies. When we work in a European project, for example, within the whole consortia, there are already experts and studies being done on several aspects. So we take that information for the evaluation, and then you really get a scientific-based evaluation. But for some criteria, it might be difficult. For example, if we talk about the bridge, some people find it very nice to look at a bridge. Some other people really find it completely intruding. So depending on those difficult type of criteria, well, you can use other experts and other types of evaluation. You can also use, and I think we will have this afternoon a discussion on it also, is you can also say, well, we use the stakeholders to give the results and to evaluate the different options according to them. And when we do a workshop with students or also with industry people, we often let them do it because it's also an interesting discussion on, how will that concept, for example, night distribution, help for a certain effect? What will that mean for congestion? It's nice, but still it's perception. So you can also let this be done more participatory, but I think as researchers we have to still look at how objectives are these being done. And certainly if there is already quite a lot of discussion on a project, people tend to have like, my alternative is the best, and so they will also be biased when giving that evaluation. And so that's something we want to avoid with the methodology, that we really think there are often hidden agendas, but here you're not discussing about alternatives, you're more discussing on what do you find important? And you can't blame people for finding things important. So you are putting the discussion more on the criteria instead of having, oh, this is my alternative and I want it. So here there is something to do, but it can be more participatory, but still I think we have to take care that it's still a scientifically based evaluation. So, and also there, once you have the evaluation and the whole type of results and advantages and disadvantages, also there, I think we can come to more participatory forms. So, yeah. A fourth venue that we are looking at, well, I'm coming from Belgium. You heard quite a lot of stories about Belgium, I guess. And so this is Brussels. It's lying within the Flanders region, and this is Wallonia. So this is, and then of course there are 19 communes in the Brussels region. So every commune also has quite a lot to say. There is the federal level. And then we have the public transport operators in Brussels, in Wallonia, in Flanders. But of course, those buses are also entering Brussels. And then you have the trains, also that's managed on the federal level. And so it gets quite complicated to help in decision making, and so you have those different competences at different institutional levels and a lot of stakeholders that are indeed involved. So we are moving also towards a competence-based multi-criteria analysis. It's the same as the MAMCA, but here we use the institutions, and we also, from the very beginning, we see what is their competence. If you would get to a solution, who will be responsible for doing what? So directly, you get also a very follow-up after the solution is being made to also implement it. So here is a little example where we use that, and it really helped to bring all those different stakeholders and institutional players understanding each other better and going in the same direction. Another venue is, well, sometimes you're not sure about your evaluation. For example, biofuels, well, it might be a good idea, but you're not completely sure. So we also work with range-based evaluations where we say, well, it might be that one, but it's quite insecure. So we work also with range-based if that's necessary. And then that co-creation, as I told you, for getting towards better alternatives. We also work a lot with just real-time workshops, as I also explained, where we let also the people giving the evaluations, or we might already have the evaluations, but then they just have to discuss their criteria and weights. And so from a whole afternoon, directly you come to a very interesting result and discussion. So this is another workshop we organized. So that's MAMCA. So what I wanted to show with this presentation is that MAMCA is offering a new dimension in the decision making and the evaluation. You really look from the different points of view, and that really gives more information than we had from the previous evaluation methods. And so by including those stakeholders, by respecting also, okay, we care about what you find important, directly you get much more support for further discussion and implementation afterwards. So that was it.
Thank you. If we finish 10 minutes later, then we can have 2 questions now?
I think it's not a problem.
Okay, so we can have a few questions.
Thank you, Cathy. I wasn't sure in the example you gave about the Chalet.
Yeah.
You had each family scoring all criteria, right?
Their own criteria.
Only their own criteria.
Only their own criteria.
But at the end you had there which says overall or
This is only the family Coréen. So they prefer Chatel, and that's what you also see here. So they prefer Chatel. So here, in fact, the result from that previous evaluation from the family Coréen comes back here. And here you would have then another family. They only look at their own criteria. And sometimes, you see, they also care about how far it is from going to the ski. But, for example, they don't mind if there is a sauna or not, so they don't put that in their criteria. Familie de Meester, they don't care about the kitchen. So you just, and that's also when we are talking about transport projects, for example, for urban distribution, who's involved is you have the shippers sending the goods, the logistics service providers, the receivers, might be the shops but you also have the authorities and the citizens. And for those 5 stakeholder groups, we look at what is important for them. And we let them weight that. So we get a list of criteria and we let them give the weights. So, for example, for the logistics service providers, you might work with network organizations, or you might invite a lot of logistics service providers, or you can do a whole survey to do that. That really depends on how much time and money you have, but so there are different ways, but the idea is always to have, okay, for that stakeholder group, when looking at new concepts, because that's also something I think in the PhD, it's best to not already say we're gonna evaluate these and these alternatives. It's better to say, if you think about sustainable city distribution, what is important for you? And then they get their criteria. Otherwise, they might already think, yeah, but it's about night distribution. So just what are we going to evaluate? And then they say what is important for them.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, are you able to get the future generations, are you able to get that into your MAMCA framework?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I really like that idea in Yannick's PhD about the future generation. I really think you can put a new stakeholder group, if we are talking about climate mitigation policies, for example, and we would have different alternatives, and you put then the stakeholder group future generation, then I think you really have to look at, for the future generation group, what are their criteria? And as you were saying, well, it's sometimes difficult. What will be for them important, but still we can have an idea on what they will still be willing to have a livable city and environment. So you can put then as an extra stakeholder group that future generation stakeholder, and I think it will also create, again, awareness, because what we notice is, for example, we've been doing workshops with companies and let them all play also a different role and get in that role. For example, it were the people from AB InBev, the beer brewers. They got then in the role of the logistics service provider, and they really understood, oh, that's why they really understood that other role. And I think if we would put like that stakeholder group, it will allow us to really think a bit more and give them an importance and visualize that they are there. They will be there. Yeah.